Hello and welcome back, lovely listener. I hope you are well. You are listening to My Surrogacy Journey, the podcast season 2, and I'm back for another incredible episode, which I think is going to be a really powerful one. We're back in the studio, but today you just have me and our amazing guests. Season 2 has been in the making for almost a year, and we're really excited to be back recording it just for you. We even have a sponsor for this season. Herts and Essex Fertility Centre was established in 1989 with an outstanding track record, have created over 7,000 babies as a result of their care over the past 34 years. Herts and Essex Fertility Centre is a leading surrogacy clinic and was awarded Surrogacy Fertility Clinic of the Year in 2018 and again in 2022. So today we're talking to two sets of My Surrogacy Journey intended parents. We're talking to Joe and Dan and Jen and Will, and we want to hear all about their story so far and all of the elements that they kind of had to navigate through when right at the start of their journey, thinking about the agency to use and the route that was right for them. Let's start with you first of all, Will and Jen. What's your name and where are you from?
So I'm Jen, originally from Ireland, but we live in Cardiff.
I'm Will, lived in Cardiff, so I brought the Irish girl to Wales.
And our journey, I guess, we're about 4 years in now from the beginning. So I think we just started off as a lot of heterosexual couples do. You think you're going to get pregnant. We got pregnant pretty quick, miscarried that one we knew there was something going wrong about 6 weeks, miscarried at 8. And then I think for me, I couldn't really remember 2019 really much. It's a bit of a fog, but we got pregnant again quite quick again. Mm-hmm. Miscarried that one. That was a bit more traumatic because it's suspected ectopic. And that's when I think I started to think, as a female, there's something wrong with me. We better go to IVF or something. My sister's an embryologist, so we had kind of an inside track there. But we met our amazing consultant, Amanda. And she was like, you don't really need it, you're grand. Just honestly, just try and relax, which is easier said than done.
Of course.
And so she said, look, if you're not pregnant by January, come back. So that was 2020. And she said, okay, great, we'll schedule in for March. And then COVID hit. Mm-hmm. So we went for IVF in, I want to say, it's around what time was it? In July-ish time?
Yeah, late June.
Late June, July. And that was a good cycle. Got 2 lovely embryos, one implanted, and one transferred, didn't implant, and went again in November. And I remember because it was the Biden-Trump election on the TV, haven't you come out of post-op? And really good cycle. So I thought that was a good thing. You know, Biden just got elected. Sorry if there's anyone who's a Trump supporter listening. And went for a transfer, didn't work again. And so my consultant said, why don't you go for 2 the next time round? And I knew I had something with my heart because I was getting checked every year. And they said, you'd be fine getting pregnant, but just we'd keep an eye on it. So I have an aorta, like the aorta, which is kind of like the major blood vessel coming out of the heart, was enlarged and it had grown. And so the diagnosis then was... It was pretty dark. It put a high chance of something quite catastrophic happening if I got pregnant, which was a shock, actually.
Yeah, after the diagnosis, obviously they gave us percentages of if Jen was to carry to full term, and it was just really eye-opening in a way when the consultant said, well, if Jen does go full term, there's a possibility that something will happen with Jen's aorta and it'll be a case of you leave your pregnant wife expecting her to come out with a little one to them coming out potentially going, do you know what? I'm really sorry, you've lost both of them. Mm-hmm. So that was quite difficult. That's why we then said, put almost a stop to IVF, and that's when we came and turned to surrogacy.
Yeah. Which is natural. I mean, it depends on where you are in your own journey, but I think for me, as a female, there's a lot to process there. You have to come to terms with an awful lot. And it's quite difficult, I think, to... Oh, I'm getting emotional.
I think it's just quite hard it was especially hard for Jen because it's not the I say natural, but do you know what I mean? It wasn't the easiest decision to come to because essentially Jen all her life has always wanted to carry her child, and then this doctor just turn around and go in, I'm really sorry, if you do then something major can happen. But yeah, it was a hard and dark time.
It's a long process as well, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think what's really good is that we just continue to talk.
Yeah.
We talked, as Jen said, we talked to a sister who's like a specialist in the area. So it was a case of we talked to her and we talked to our consultants as well. We talked to our doctors to get the full picture of it all. When the decision was to turn to surrogacy, it was personally like the right choice, because for me, that's what I did not want to happen, is to have that doctor come out and go, right, I'm really sorry that you're leaving the hospital alone.
The risk was too high, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. The analogy I used with Jen was, she was like, there were times that Jen used to go through, yeah, I'll do it, I'll carry to full term, it'll be fine. And I was like, okay, get a gun with like 4 chambers, stick 1 bullet in a chamber, spin it, and put the gun to your head and pull the trigger. See how lucky you feel. And that's what essentially it came down to, because it was 27% chance that could happen.
Of course.
And it's only until that you kind of do just go down.
Yeah.
It'll go, I'll be fine. But it's only until something real. It sounds silly, but
I think as
like
a female, it's easier for you to kind of almost like not worry about yourself so much. So it was only when Will put it in such stark terms for me, because I was like, oh, but there's like a 70% chance it'll be fine. But, you know, I think it's, then you have to think bigger than yourself. It's a tough one. It's still something that's really tough to get used to. And I think you have good days, bad days on that one. But like, you know, I'm very lucky that I've got such an amazing partner in Will and an incredible family. But you will, like, I do sometimes feel really crappy about myself. And that's okay to feel like that. I think you just have to, it is what it is. You know, you've been dealt these cards. You may not like the hand, but you just got to do the best you can with it. And yeah, I think that's what brought us here and what brought us to, I guess, MSJ. I mean, we looked at other places too, but I suppose we can talk about our journey as well later if you want.
No, and I think, you know, from all the time that I've spent with you, mostly on Zoom calls, I think it's really evident to see how connected you are and how you support each other, which is really, really lovely to see.
I think the whole process, surrogacy as a whole, if you haven't got that connection, if you're not strong enough as a couple, then it will be hard. Yes, we have dark times. I'll go through like a little dip, but Jen will be there to hold me up, and vice versa. And I think that's what every couple hopefully will have.
And you're not always going to be rock solid as well. You're going to go through periods where you're not.
And there are times that you just want to sit in your pajamas, curtains closed, eat your body weight in chocolate, and watch Mary Poppins on repeat.
He's more Mary Poppins. I'm not.
No, I know all that. No, thank you. That was a really lovely. Let's go over to you, Joe and Dan. Can you kind of give us a bit of your story and where you've got to?
Yeah, sure. So, hi, I'm Dan. I'm from Essex.
And I'm Joe. I'm also from Essex. You can probably tell by the accents, right? So our journey, we met in January 2020. So, and sort of 3.5 years now that we've been together. And I'm sort of 42 now, and didn't expect to meet the love of my life when I was in my late 30s. So being a parent was always a huge dream for me. So I'd actually looked into surrogacy as an IP on my own before I'd met Dan. So already been looking around and looking at different options. But then Dan and I met in January 2020, and it's kind of like all our values and beliefs and dreams and everything all just came together, and it was this great big sort of like explosion that, right, okay, well, we want to be dads, and
Revelation.
It was always going to be surrogacy as the option, because we both had a real strong desire to have biological children.
Sure.
We get the question all the time, as I'm sure you guys have, is why don't you adopt? There's plenty of children out there, you know. But, you know, just because we're two guys doesn't mean that the right's taken
That's
away
your
from
default,
us to have biological children. So, I mean, different to you guys, we knew from the beginning that we didn't have all the parts that we needed to have a baby. So I think I'd struggled with that mentally years ago. When I first came out, that was a big thing for me, because I was like, I always knew I wanted to be a dad, even when I was sort of 10 years old, and I used to go to my mum's playgroup and play with the kids. I just loved it. So I always knew I was going to be a parent. But when I came out, that was the main thing for me. And it was the main thing for my mother as well, is that she thought, I'm never going to have grandchildren. And it's always something we struggled with. So when we met, and it was like same dream. We were like, wow, we need to like get on this.
I think at that point we wanted to explore the option of surrogacy a little bit further, and just had, I mean, where'd you begin? Like, well, there's so many questions and so many different things on the websites and just telling you so many different stuff that I think it was two dads that we came across first of all, the other group, and reached out, spoke with Mike, and we just had a bunch of questions that just instantly put us, at ease, and just sort of began to understand that process a little bit more. But I think also as well, like on unique times, right? 2020, 2021, the lockdowns just gave us a lot of opportunity to really sit down with each other and understand exactly what it is that we both wanted as what I now know as a term as intended parents. We wouldn't even use that as that term back then, as something that's quite regularly as we do now. But to be able to understand and look further into, let's speak with these guys, let's find out a little bit more information.
Will and Jen, what were the kind of concerns you had around surrogacy? What were the thoughts?
Oh, so many. I'm a bit of a control freak. So, oh, good, you are
Me
too.
too. Yeah.
There's one in every couple.
So I think for me, the control, I mean, as a female as well, I suppose, different. Like I grew up believing I could have a baby and I could carry. And so you've got that, knowing that you can't do that, but then also then thinking, well, we're now going to have to find someone that we trust to give our most precious thing to, and trust that they're going to look after that like we would. And then you realise you're so vulnerable that you also get scared, because before we spoke with you and before we kind of learned more about surrogacy, you're terrified that this person is going to get pregnant with your child and then could essentially hold you to ransom. Like you're just going to do whatever they ask because they've got your baby.
Yeah.
So for me, it was, well, how do we ever find someone that we trust? And like trust is a really difficult thing, because it's like finding, the love of your life. It's not, it's kind of a bit serendipity. It's kind of fate. It's, so for me, it was the fear of, we're never going to find someone that we truly trust to do this in. We're always going to be, crossing our fingers behind our backs.
I've never known anyone to go through surrogacy, never known anyone to go through a miscarriage. And it's going through the whole process. For me, I couldn't go to like my dad or my uncle, my cousin, my friend or whatever, and just go, hi mate, I'm going through a bad time because X, Y and Z has happened. Can you give me a piece of advice? So I couldn't do that. But I think ever since meeting you guys at MSJ, that has helped massively, because if I've got an issue or there's a little concern or niggle in my head, I can literally just drop you guys a message or give you a phone call or jump on a Zoom call, ask the question, bang, straight away, I'm reassured. But I think that at the start of the whole process was no one I knew had been through it. No one I knew could give me advice. So that's what was my main one. But no, but going back to Jen's one, it was like we were actually considering asking our best friends and stuff. And I didn't want to do that, because if anything happened,
Of course.
we would be like, oh, is it because they did it wrong or they didn't look after it the right way and stuff like that?
No one knowing or no one understanding. That is really super common, and that's something that most people face.
Yeah.
And that's whether you want to tell people you're going through it or not, but it's not uncommon to not have that kind of level of knowledge within your peers.
And I know this is just my personal experience, but there seems to be a massive stigma around it all, and that's miscarriage, that's surrogacy, and that's for men. Men don't speak as much as women do, and like only like a handful of my friends know what we're going through, but all of Jen's do. All her family knows. Not all my family know, because I haven't told them. It's not because I'm ashamed or anything.
No,
it's just because it sounds really bad, but I just don't know what to say.
No, of course. And it's personal to everyone, isn't it?
It's a lot to explain, I think, as well. Like my friends are great because they just normalise it. And I think when you meet other people, like in other intended parents, and you become part of that community, it becomes more normal. And then you realise that, it's not like, as one of my counsellors first said, this is not normal. Like as in for a heterosexual couple, this is not normal. But that's okay. You just got to embrace that. And as soon as you kind of accept that, it becomes easier. And my friends now, like, will be on the phone and we'll be chatting and I'll say, hey, how are you? How are the kids? Oh, yeah, grand. Yeah, listen, where are you with that surrogacy now? Like they'd be at they're at that kind of part of it of, how is your surrogate? How's that coming along? Oh, how were they? Did you see them last weekend? It's part of normal conversation now. So I'm very grateful for the friends I have for that. But, you know, I would say it's at the beginning we weren't like that.
No. And it takes some adjustment, doesn't it? It takes time to process. And I think, and I know I say this a lot, you don't know what you don't know, but when you start your journey to where you are now, you look how far you've come already, you know? It takes a long time. And like, guys, I know you guys aren't at the same level of these guys, and you will be at some point. Let's talk to you two guys. So in terms of, what were the apprehensions you had before starting surrogacy? What were the worries that you had? Because I think it's really interesting, because our listener will either be same sex or our listener will either be hetero. And I think the reason that we have, you know, two types of intended parents on these, so that we're always hearing different sides of perspective. And I think it's, you know, what you guys, Will and Jenna, are talking about, I hear it so often. And I know it's going to be the same for you guys. So Joe and Dan, tell us about what the apprehension was at the start of your journey.
Yeah, there was loads, wasn't there?
Yeah, I mean, and listening to you guys as well, like, we had the same apprehensions, like at the very beginning of, if we go through surrogacy, what's to say that this person at the end is how do you trust that person? How, I mean, I say it sounds silly now, but I know that it doesn't, because we've all been through this. But what if they change their mind? Right at the very end, during the process, whatever it is, like, what if they change their mind? And then how does somebody begin to answer that to convince you otherwise?
We got over that fairly quickly, though, because it was obviously the two options, the traditional or the gestational, and it was quite a lot of things we tend to agree on. And Danny's really laid back. I'm definitely I try to be the decision maker all the time, but occasionally he calls me out, and this was something he really called me out on, because I was actually fairly comfortable with a traditional route. I would have explored it, but he just cut that off and was like, absolutely not. I'm not comfortable with that whatsoever. We need to go through the other route. And I was like, do you know what? That's the first time I've seen you that passionate about something, so we're going with that. And yeah, it's a lot more expensive, because for me, I work in finance, so money was a big thing for me, still is a big thing for me. Sure. We're not millionaires, we're by no means got lots of money, and every single penny that we put into this, we would have, blood, sweat, tears would have gone into that penny. So everything means a lot, and all those decisions mean a lot. And I've probably asked some pretty weird questions to people throughout this journey when it comes to finances, because I want to know the detail. So for me, that was a fairly big thing.
And Dan, Joe, you just mentioned that Dan was very adamant around, you know, gestational and not traditional. What do you think it was that made that decision? Was it because you understood and was really well informed and was able to make a really firm decision about what was right for you?
Yeah, I think so. I think I can't remember exactly what the point was, but I
for Dan, for the gestational, it was that person is not going to run off with that baby. Whereas traditional, he has had it in his head that person was just going to say, well, that's my egg. I don't care if that's your sperm. Yeah. I'm going to do a runner. I want that baby. Yeah. And so for a mental block point of view, it was like, it's not their egg, it's not their sperm, therefore it's our baby, it's not your baby. And that was how we dealt with that as a couple. And
that's a really common approach, to be fair, you know, in terms of people, you know, deciding which one's right for them. You know, most people in your situation would go for gestational. But again, you know, I think through this whole process, it's all about what feels right. I mean, that's how Michael and I managed our journey. It's all about what felt right for us. And I'm assuming that it was the same for you guys, you know?
Yeah, I think you just have to go with your gut. And I think whenever you feel like your gut's telling you something different, just listen to that. You may not be able to vocalise why, but there were, you know, we'd explored other agencies as well, and there were times we'd come off Zoom calls or we'd go to a social, and we would come away and I would just be like, I can't do that again. You would be able to verbalise why, but every single fibre in your body was telling you no. And then you just had to just listen to that and go, okay, well, I don't know what the other option is, but we're not doing that again.
Sure.
So I think that's what I would say, is just go with your tummy. Your gut knows the best.
No, I totally agree. That's my mantra. Now, we all know that, you know, surrogacy is the long haul and it takes a while to be matched. And I think, you know, you guys are waiting to be matched, but Will and Jen, you are matched. But that hasn't come quickly, has it? You know, there's been a long period of time where it's taken us to match you. And we've had some difficult conversations, right? You know, in terms of the time frames. How have you dealt with that? Because I know that for most couples or single people going through surrogacy, managing that wait time is really, really difficult.
well, for me, like conversations we've had from the off, I put faith in you guys because this was your bread and butter. This is what you do day in, day out. So it was a case of, yes, there were long periods, but at the end of the day, you were doing this for us. You weren't doing it for anything else. You were looking to help us out, and I think that's what it was. We just had to put our full and utter trust into you, into the process.
I'm probably more impatient.
I know.
I am the more impatient one.
I know.
There were times Jen was like, "Oh, what's happening?" So I was like, "Look, they're the experts. This is their bread and butter." Oh, okay, I'll wait.
So I
I'll
would
sit on their hands.
Yeah, I don't like waiting. I'm really impatient. So you want it to work as quickly as possible. But I would say looking back on it and in hindsight, and we had good discussions preparing for this, didn't we, really? I don't know, I'm not really believing in the universe or something, but I think in hindsight you can kind of see that sometimes things happen for a reason. And sometimes you need to go slower to go quicker. Slowing us down helped someone like me who just wants to get there really quick, because it gives you the time and the space to think, to talk. And what it gave us last year was, because we'd done our profile and we did our video, and we'd call you all the time going, should we tweak it? And you'd be like, no, it's fine. Seriously, leave it. And that is the temptation if you're someone like me, is to constantly fiddle around the edges. But then what we did was, it kind of, Will just said, trust in the process. And we just kind of let go, kind of almost surrender to it. And we then had the time to connect back with us, because surrogacy can be all consuming. It really can. And sometimes just surrendering and trusting in the process means that we had a great year last year, didn't we? 2022 was an amazing year for us. And that's actually when we found our surrogate as well, because we just relaxed and connected back to being a couple and didn't think day in, day out. I mean, our code word used to be the S. Let's not talk about S today. And we didn't even worry about that last year.
No, and I think you've just got to have, over the whole process, and this, if I was to give you one piece of advice, just have time for yourself. I think over the whole process, just if there are times where you're a little bit overwhelmed about the whole process, just take a step back, just concentrate on yourself. Have like a day with no phones or no social media or anything like that, because that's what we did. And that's what properly got us through everything. But yeah, at the end of the day, the couples have to be strong. You have to be connected in the whole thing, and that's what we've done. Like as you said, we've now last year found our surrogate, who is amazing, and yeah, we just believed in the process and believed in you guys.
And I think you're right, Jen. You know, it does become all consuming, and I you know, I have some really difficult conversations with intended parents. You know, but I kind of say to them, this will happen, and I'm sure I probably said this to you. You know, it's going to happen, guys. I can't tell you when, but it's going to happen. And then when it does, it's the right person for you, and it is all about finding that right match.
Yeah.
You know, and I get IPs that are really frustrated, and it happens all the time. You know, but that's kind of what we do. But I just say to them, I mean, look, this will happen, and when it does happen, remember this conversation, because the amount of times I've had conversations with IPs and they're like, you were right. We were waiting for the right person, and we'd potentially seen some surrogates before and they weren't right for us, but this one absolutely is and feels absolutely right. And that's the process. But we accept as an organisation that you're going through tough times, you want it to happen, you're desperate for it to happen, but it's really difficult for us to try and manage expectation. And as much as we try, I think what's a really good analogy for you guys is how you kind of, you let it be and you didn't let it consume you, because often that does. And I think you have to get to that limit before you realise that it's consuming you, and then you relax. And I'm not saying this is going to happen for everyone, but for you guys, then it happened.
Like we might sound like the perfect couple. And if you're listening to this going, these two sound like perfect, we're not. Like we'd have had loads of fights about surrogacy where one of us would say, no more about it. I'm not talking about it this weekend. But I think that's when, you know, as you say, you get to that point where you then just have to go, right, that's it, just surrender. And
sometimes you don't know until you get to that point, right?
I probably wouldn't have. You knew before I did. I fought against her for a while.
But I'm not saying that your journey's typical, but it kind of is. You know, and I hear that a lot from intended parents about how they manage the process. And everyone's different, right? Everyone has different levers and everyone has different things that they're willing to accept. But also people have different kind of things where they've come from and things to deal with. So no one journey's the same. So in terms of the advice that you would give to these guys, I know that you just gave some, but is there anything else that you would say to them to help them manage that period that felt like forever with you guys. I know it did.
I'd say just be patient. I know and that's easier said than done. And that's coming from someone who likes everything like yesterday. Just let go and surrender to it. It will happen. What's meant for you won't pass you. So just believe in that. And, we're only, we haven't got to the stage of a transfer yet, and I don't know what the future is going to hold. But what we kind of focus on, I'm very future focused kind of individual. Will's kind of more in the present, which helps pull me back. But what I would liken it to is sometimes if you're cycling, if you're a cyclist or if you're a runner or whatever, and you're running or cycling up a hill, if you look at the top of the hill, it looks really scary and you think I can never make that. But then if you just look at your own feet and think one pedal or one step, and that's what my advice would be, just focus on this is probably Will's advice to me, but focus on the now, celebrate every single win, whether it's a call with a potential surrogate, whether you get matched with a surrogate, each of them are little wins and each of them are another step forward, and celebrate each of them. And don't worry about, and I say this outwardly and it's more self-counselling, but don't worry about what the future may hold, because you can't control that will happen whether you worry about it or not. But try to celebrate the little mini wins that come along the way.
Yeah, I would absolutely agree. And as I said earlier, just talk. Talk and talk. One of you may be having a dark day, and the other person in the relationship just needs to hold space for that person, because before you know it, it could be you having that dark day and your partner will hold that space for you. It is a long journey, but trust in MSJ. Yeah. They are a good group of people, and they are doing their utmost to help every single couple. So just as Jen says, just celebrate the mini wins. As we say back home, Ailsa it and just let it go. Yeah. And just believe in them.
Yeah. So we have these little things where it's Elsa, just frozen it, just let it go.
Just let it go.
Or today I'm Dory, which is just keep swimming. So some days where you're so overwhelmed, you're like, just keep swimming.
Lots of Disney references.
And then and otherwise it's just frozen. Yeah. And we're like, just let it go.
Yeah.
So we have our little code words as well.
But that's how you get through it, right?
Yeah.
And that's the mechanisms you've built between you to help you navigate through some of those sometimes really difficult times.
You'll have your own code words, you'll have your own language.
I think we can relate to that. We like the process that we've been through and going through, obviously the clinics and the apricity, finding the donor for us. Each little step now, you look back and you go, oh yeah, that was a win, tick, that was a win, tick. And at the time, that was actually a really big thing. That hurdle was like a really big thing, and now you look back.
They're big milestones, actually, really, when you think about it. And I think, often people underestimate the milestones. Yeah. I mean, particularly when you have to find a donor, then you have to manage the elements of, do you both create embryos? Do one of you create embryos? The impact of that.
Yeah, that was tricky.
There's lots of different things to navigate. And I also think that those of you who are using donor conception to create a family, there's elements that you won't have even thought about. What we often hear with intended parents who are using either donor sperm or donor eggs is that they're thinking about the here and now, and the decisions they're making are about here and now, and actually the decisions they're making should also be thinking about the future and what does the future look like, and how is your decision now going to impact the future. And I'm hoping as an organisation that's what we help you navigate through and help you understand.
It's for me with MSJ, and I wrote it down, it was quite a poignant thing when we were sort of preparing to what we were going to talk about today, was that MSJ isn't here to make decisions for you. And I think that was a real moment for me that I realised that, because not at any point have you told us that's what you need to do as a couple, because we are quite strong-minded. We knew what we wanted. We just didn't know how to get there. So it was every single step, it's a list of options, and it's like, oh wow, so they're the options that you trust, so we'll definitely pick one of those because you guys have been through it, so understand it, and it's all relatable. So that's been really helpful for us. I don't think you or Mike or Carly has ever said, I think that's best for you guys. It's always been, go away, have a chat and come back to us and let us know. And we've made that decision, and it's been fairly easy to make that decision because we've been given all the information we need.
Yeah. And really, when Michael and I set up the organisation, it was one of our guiding principles, is that we're not there to make decisions for people.
Yeah.
We're there to arm you with all of the facts, arm you with all of the skill to make a decision yourself. And you've got to come to that and we make no underestimation. These are life-changing decisions that you're making, and no one does it lightly. But we really want to make sure you've thought it through. We really want to make sure that you have all of the information that's going to allow you to make the most informed decision. And I'm glad to hear that's we've achieved that, because that is really fundamentally what we are all about. It's all about choice.
Like that. Yeah, it really does. We feel that.
Guys, tell me about your support network, your family. What do they know? I mean, I might be kind of saying too much on the podcast, so sorry. And we can edit it out. But I'm just curious to how do you manage their expectation? Because I know that, from your experience, you're not only having to manage your own expectations, you're having to manage other people that you've kind of shared your journey with. So how do you two manage that?
We found it a bit difficult, actually. I mean, we are so lucky, and we thank our praises every single day that we've got really lovely families. We've both got both parents. Both parents are pretty much retired. We see them regularly. Can't wait for grandchildren. So there is pressure there, and absolutely we've shared our journey with them. But the thing that's difficult is they know what's happening, so what appointments are coming up. So it's the pressure after the appointment that I feel. And when we were having the embryos created, I underestimated how I would feel about that. And it's all stats and numbers, and we're using both of our sperm, and it's all right, well, how many embryos are we going to create? And me being a control freak, I was like, oh well, I want that many, and it's like, well, I can't be in control of that. So I couldn't speak to anyone really about that apart from Dan, who was extremely supportive and was just like, we'll get through this. But then it's the question, so who's going first, or who's going to be the dad of the first one, or those sort of questions. We get asked that all the time, and we hate it. We absolutely hate it.
We still get asked it when our kids are there in front of our kids. Talulah is coming up to 7 this year, and she's a smart kid, and we've always been open and honest with her. But she understands what people are asking, and it's crazy that people still ask that.
But people are just being curious, and I get that. I've got a lot of curious people in my family and a lot of curious people around me in my friends network, and I know where they're coming from, but it doesn't make it hurt any less. It really is. It's none of your business. And I can't remember, it was a therapist or someone told us a line where it's like, well, we're both going to be the dad.
Well, you are.
And it just shut people off.
Absolutely,
That's not for you to know. And
I'm always really astounded why people have this obsession with knowing whose sperm is used. I mean, it's like, you wouldn't ask a hetero couple about any kind of biology to their children.
I would fear that, though. I would fear, we have had that being asked, oh, will that child be biologically yours?
Yeah.
Because people assume if you're going through surrogates, it's not my egg. And that is my fear, weirdly, is that when the child is born, that someone's going to say, is it yours? To me, because normally people wouldn't question the female, but I feel like they will now, because they'll think, well, there was obviously something wrong with Jen, so it must be a donor egg, and we have had an older generation, I wouldn't say my friends, but probably our parents' generation, ask us, would it be biologically yours?
Yeah, and in work, obviously I've tried to preempt paternity leave and maternity leave and all that, and everyone, and I've spoken to people in work, and they've gone, yeah, but you're going through surrogacy, she won't be the birth mother. It's like, she will.
Well, not the birth mother.
No, but you know what I mean. It will be the baby's mother. She will be it, and it's just, I don't know if it's potential ignorance, because they've just seen it for generations. It's like male, female, come together, create a baby. Yeah, that's what we've been taught almost.
Conditioned.
And things change.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And it's just people just haven't almost kept up with it.
Evolved with it.
And it's just, and that's what we've gone through. I don't know, you guys.
Yeah, I mean, there has to be an allowance for that as well. Yeah. These poor people, their mind is blown. We've had ages to get our heads around this, and that's why we really try not to get angry or rude or defensive. We just cut it off and be like, right, that's a step too far, and make it known that
it is. And I'm not saying it's acceptable, but remember, you guys are really well informed.
Yeah.
And they don't have that level of being informed, and that's not their fault. But equally, they should be able to manage a situation. And
that's why I think what you were touching on earlier with people just being generally curious about, no one's gone through this, so where do you go to? You can't talk to your family about that as an experience because no one's gone through it. You can't talk to your friends about it because they haven't gone through it. So it's a genuine curiosity.
It is. And it's one we hear about often, whereas some intended parents don't feel like they've got a safe space to be able to have conversations about what's going on because no one can relate to them, no one's been through it. And that's why I think sometimes at the My Surrogacy Journey events, you get a chance to speak to other people who are just like you and who are going through the same as you and understand exactly what. I wish we could do more, to be fair. But I think that's a really, really common point where you don't feel as if you've got people in your support network. And then if you do tell them, then it comes with the constant questions: where are you at? Where's this? What's happening? And I think it's difficult for you to kind of work with the timelines, never mind that your support network as well, because they don't comprehend it and they really don't comprehend the timescales that are associated with it.
Like, I can relate to you guys when you're saying you're making your embryos, because we were going through IVF actually during lockdown, which was a blessing for us, and we told no one. Not even our close families, because again, you just didn't want the whole, well, they've collected, so how many eggs, how many fertilized, how many, and you don't even understand the stats yourself. So you're thinking, I don't know. So we actually didn't tell anyone until we'd actually gone through transfer and it hadn't worked for us, because to your point, otherwise you just have well-meaning questions and curiosity. But, my parents are, well, not my dad necessarily, but my mum would be like, so how many eggs? Did they all fertilize? And you're thinking, good God, I never normally would talk to my mother about fertilizing eggs. So why am I talking about this now? So we didn't tell our parents at all, actually, until afterwards, actually.
I think it's about being full up emotionally as well, like that we were dealing with enough as you were going through that process as a couple and as individuals without having to deal with someone else's emotions as well. And I know that can probably sound a bit selfish, but it is about us. And I was hitting that peak, and I haven't felt like that in a long time. But it was a point where anyone asked me, I could feel myself welling up. I was just like, this is just such a huge moment for us, and it might not feel it for other people, but we've been building up to this for a long time, and that's our little family there being created, and it's such a moment because we've been in control of it.
It's a moment you can prepare for either.
No, God, well, clearly not, because I wasn't prepared at all for the emotions. So I then really struggled with the whole family questions coming after it, because I just wanted to say, oh, please just give me a moment. Yeah. But it's all fine. We love them dearly and we want them to know everything, and we really do. It's just it catches you unawares, doesn't it, at times? So
and it's a kind of catch-22, isn't it? You give them everything and you get that, or you don't, and it is.
You want them to ask, but you don't necessarily want them to ask at the same time. So it's a difficult one for them to navigate as well, as you're saying. They're just doing their best and they're trying to be supportive by being curious, but as you say, there's times where you just don't have the capacity for them and for what they're feeling. And I've had that conversation with my family of, I don't have the capacity right now to deal with your concerns about me. I just need you just need to know that I'm okay. But I love you dearly, but please, I need you to go away for a while. I'm okay. Please, I can't deal with your stress about me.
So next time, and what we would say to the listener is, tell your relatives to listen to this podcast. Because that's going to give them a really good insight to the type of, what you're dealing with and how they impact you on your journey, which is already, challenging enough at times, right? Guys, Joe and Dan, how are you doing with the weight? Because you do have embryos. You are waiting to be matched with a surrogate. I don't know exactly off the top of my head how long have you been waiting, but just talk to me about how you're dealing with it and how it feels.
I mean, it's a long wait, isn't it? No, I think we're doing okay. I think for us, like you said at the beginning, didn't you, Joe? Like we kind of accept at the beginning of our journey, that this is going to be a longer journey for us, because it just going to be, because biologically we can't have children together. So for us, we went through quite a bit in terms of, like what I was saying earlier, with choosing egg donors and then going to the clinics. And then once that's all done and you have your embryos, what I then wasn't actually prepared for, or maybe both of us, was now's the waiting game, cool. And that's it. And now it's like we're sort of in this limbo stage of what next? Should we be doing anything? Can we do anything? Is there anything else that we should know about? Is there And each time, like Carly, she's like, no, it's all good, we're good. Like, and we do like what you guys saying, like explicitly, like we trust the process, and we know it's all happening, and all of that, and it's just being patient, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I've got to get my mind on something else. So I've got my mind on something else. We moved, we're getting married. Like, it's all happening for us. It's all great. And if I personally didn't have that, then I don't know where I'd be, if I'm honest. I probably would be much more of a nuisance, and I would be scrolling the internet a hell of a lot more. But, yeah, we were always planning on moving anyway. So we moved, and we've got a doer upper, so we've got to do all the house. Also, we're getting married in September next year. So it's a bit risky to book a wedding then, because you don't know what's around the corner. But as Dan said, come on, let's just do it. And then we always knew we were going to get married. We're not that far in advance. So for me, in my head, it's, I've got this sort of path out in front of me, so I can put things at the back of my head and just have a catch up with Carly, and we can talk about it, and when it happens for us, it happens. But occasionally I have times when I'm screaming in my head thinking, what is going on here? Like, our family's is frozen and ready to go, and I really want to meet. So even just meeting the surrogate, I just love to meet them and just find out who they are and just find out more about them, and like just knowing that someone is out there that potentially is going to carry our baby or our family is just so exciting. But just trying to sit on my hands. And
I think there's an element as well for listeners, like just in terms of how feeling is frustrated, if I'm being brutally honest, because it's not at you guys, just the actual process. Because again, you have a lot to do in that sort of like beginning stage.
And that start is, you're quite busy, aren't you?
Of course, exactly.
There's lots to take in, there's lots of appointments, there's lots of people to speak to, and then all of a sudden...
Yeah, and the frustration is that this is just where we are as a society, and where we are here in the UK with the whole thing. Is the stat still 1 in 4 surrogates for IPs? Yeah, yep. So, it's understanding that, and that's the frustration part of... We're ready, like we're all ready, and we're having to sort of wait. So there's something you can't control there, but being understanding it and accepting it.
Sure. And I think, well, and Jen, you might relate to this, but like I see a lot of intended parents who aren't successful with surrogates, and they don't move forward with this particular surrogate, and they take it really personally. And the first thing they say is, what's wrong with us? What's wrong with my profile? How can I be better? All of those things. And the conversation, I mean, I know you know that you've had exactly that, haven't you?
Like we've had the exact, like, should we change our profile? Maybe if we make ourselves look more interesting. And Will will be like, yeah, but Jen, we're going to say we're paddle boarders, and then we're going to meet a surrogate, and then we're going to have to go paddle boarding, and then realise really quick we're not paddle. Like we've just been on a paddle board once, love. We are not professionals. So we'd look at our own profile and go, God, we look boring. Like, should we try jazz ourselves up? And Wes would always say to us, no, you're lovely the way you are. Just trust. So everything you guys were saying, we were both vigorously nodding away to here when you were talking, because we felt all those, how can we go quicker? Why aren't we seeing it? Has there anyone, we'd say to you, has anyone looked at our profile? And then you'd say, would you want to know that? I don't know.
And I think sorry to interrupt, but one stage we said, how many people have looked at our profile? And you turn around and go, do you really want to know? And you literally, I think this is the only time you took a decision away from us. You went, I'm not actually going to tell you.
Yeah.
Because it was just then going back, just thinking, right, if there's 17, what's wrong with me that those 17,
the impact
for example,
of that what I would give you would have I knew it would have a rippling impact.
Yeah. But going back to what you said, they don't make decisions for us, but that was the only decision that you've made. And I think that was the right decision to do.
Because we are the type of personalities, aren't we? It's like being a kid in that playground and not being picked for it. You always think, why am I being picked for your team? I'm awesome. Like, why? At the same time, I was thinking you're incredibly boring. We were grateful that you didn't actually tell us that. I think that would have just... certainly like someone like me would have put me into a mind melt.
Yeah, and I think that's a dynamic decision that I have to make on the spot. But it's also around, I've known you for a long time now, and I've built a relationship with you, and I kind of know you, but I kind of don't. Do you know what I mean? So I know how you react to things. I know what's going to happen. So it's always about trying to do the right thing for you, and it's always about what's in your best interest. And I might have made a mistake there, I might not, but it was what I thought was the right thing to do, And I think it's always about trying to manage expectations, because, I speak to IPs and the first thing they say to me, what's wrong with us? You know, I was like, there's nothing wrong with you. This is not a job interview. It's not that you weren't qualified. This just wasn't the right fit for you right now, but there will be a right fit. And I know I've had that conversation with you guys and you found that right fit, and there will be a right fit for you two guys. I'm absolutely certain of it. But you have to put the faith in it. And I know you guys all talk about having the faith in us, but we have to have that same faith as well. We have to have the faith that the processes we have in place are right, and that we're giving everyone what they need. You know, we firmly believe in it. I mean, I'm sat here with you all today, and it's what we do. And I'm hoping that podcasts like this allow people to understand surrogacy better, which might mean that more surrogates come forward. That might mean that the wait time for everyone reduces slightly. You know, the UK is difficult, and that's the reality that I have to talk to people about. And sometimes people don't like what I have to say, but this is the UK. You know, as an organisation, we do everything we can to attract surrogates to want to work with us and match with, you know, amazing people like you. We are really privileged as an organisation, because I would say 99.9% of our IPs are amazing people and are going to make amazing parents. And it's really easy to match really lovely people like you guys. You matched with a really lovely surrogate, and she matched with you as well. And remember, this is not just about a surrogate match with an IP or vice versa. It is about both. And what I have learned from this process is that surrogates are equally as nervous and insecure about matching with someone. This is not about they hold all the power, they're going to make those decisions. They are, well, the ones we work with are just like you guys, really nervous about the match, really nervous about the calls, because they're as invested as you are. And it's a real privilege actually to be in the middle of it all and see the matches come together and how that is changing people's lives.
And I would just say, once you are matched, be patient, because if you, like, just listening to you, if you expect it to all go quickly again, you will have to then wait as well. It won't happen straight away. There will be
I think you're right there.
Bloods and appointments, and a whole other world opens up in front of you. So we're now in that next patient phase, but it will happen. But each stage, you just want it to happen as quickly as possible, but it's just it has its own time frame.
Do you know what? I've loved just having a really relaxed conversation with both of you, both through different lenses from both couples. Last piece of advice. So if you were talking to yourself at the beginning of your journey, what advice would you give yourself?
I'd say what's meant to be will be, and if you just believe in that. I'm not, because we're not sure, but we still haven't done a transfer. We're not sure we'll ever end up with the baby that we want. But you just have to go. What will be, and at the end of it, we can say we've given it our all. And if you can say that, then you're okay. So, there's no one can tell you it's all going to work out and it's all going to be amazing. But if you just say what will be, then you'll be okay. Yeah,
and you're good people. Good things happen to good people.
I hope so.
I say that. I do. I firmly believe that, and I'm with you, Jen. You know, if it's meant to be, it'll be, and I really firmly believe that.
Thank you.
I think, as I said before, just talk. Talk to yourself, talk to your friends, talk to your family, talk to Wes, Mike, Carly, whoever in MSJ. Just talk, because you may turn around and go, it's just a stupid question. I'm not going to ask that. There is no stupid question, because you won't be the first, you won't be the last person to ask a stupid question that you think is a stupid question. So just talk to your partner. Just don't bottle things up. That's all I say, is just talk and talk and talk, and also have time for yourself.
I think that's a really good. Both of your elements are like you're really experienced now, though, aren't you? You know, you've been through it. You kind of coming to the other end of it, where you're moving on to the next phase.
It's been a fear of ours in the beginning. Is you see so many couples go through infertility and all that, and it can really break them apart. And for us, it was about how do we stay anchored to one another, because you're going to be in rough seas, and you know you are each other's anchor point. But that's our way of and Will's not a natural talker. I tend to externalize everything, and Will's very much internalizing. So Will had to kind of get used to talking, and I probably had to get used to listening.
Yeah, difficult one, but it's been a journey.
What about you two guys? And I know that you've kind of midway through, and there's still a lot more to go, but you've learned so much already.
I would say stay true to yourself, stay true as a couple, and be in the moment of it all. I think we've said a few times where you always what ifs and the buts that come along with a lot of the decisions that you have to make, and then equally with those decisions that you have to make, you find yourself going on these crazy kind of little conversations as a couple or in your own head as to what can I do that will make us sound, this, or what can I do to make sure I get a wider net for an egg donor or something like that, and actually just bring it all back in, like, this is about us, this is about, us as a couple and who we are, and be in that moment there and then, as opposed to trying to force things to happen.
And act like a sponge as well. There is so much information out there, and wowzers, like we are. You said about being veterans as such, and it was certainly not the four of us, but I mean, we know an awful lot now than we did back then. So I have listened to every single podcast I can think of. I have read every single word on your website. I have read testimonials, and I know I'm not much of a reader. I don't read books or anything. I find it quite boring because I'm a bit hyperactive, so I need to keep busy all the time. But for me, I'm so interested in the subject, so just read everything. Go to the sort of Modern Family show that you guys run, also the socials. I've personally got a lot out of that. We've met some fantastic people along the journey, and we are sociable people, but we don't make new friends as such, because we've probably got a fair amount to meeting later on in life that have sort of collided, so we're fairly busy. So it's kind of using those forums to just open yourself up a little bit, just to talk to people and let people in, because it's amazing what a medicine that is, to walk away to think, oh my God, there is actually other people in our situation. And my last bit I would say is, don't be bullied into giving any information that you don't want to by people that aren't part of your journey.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, actually.
Yeah, we have definitely given people information that we didn't need to give them, because we're nice people and we're polite and we don't want to upset anyone. But actually, after saying it, I thought, oh God, I wish I hadn't said that. That was quite private, and that's our journey, not for them to know. And so make that clear right from the beginning when you have your first counselling sessions. Really lay that out on the line. This is what we're going to accept, and this is what we're not going to accept, and we're going to try and stay true to it as much as we can throughout the journey. If we don't, then we discuss it with each other first, rather than do a whoopsie and then go, oh, sorry, Dan, I said that to Mum. I know I shouldn't have done it. Just sort of come out, and do you know what? That's actually a real compromise on trust there.
Sure.
Because even though it's my mother or his mother, it's like, it's us now.
It is, and I often talk about this journey being such a personal, such an intimate journey as well. I mean, there are things that you go through individually that no one else is aware of because you're so connected, and I think the journey does things to you as well that you need to kind of manage within each other. And I think that's a really big part, is how intimate this journey is. And you have to protect that for yourselves, because who else have you got if you're not protecting it for yourselves? Well, I feel a bit drained, actually. But I think it's really lovely listening to both of your stories. And, they have a lot of similarity, but a lot of things that are different. And I think the commonality there with a journey, irrelevant whether you're same sex, whether you're hetero, all of those things, there's some fundamental things that are the same no matter, how you create your family, which I think for us is kind of really recognisable, but also we acknowledge the fact that there's some differences, and everyone's journey is really unique to them. So thank you very much for being in the studio with us today. I really appreciate your time, and I know that these are really personal journeys, and thank you for sharing them with us. And I'm sure the listener will appreciate the sensitivity that's gone into being part of the podcast today. So I really appreciate all of your energy and support today. So thank you very much.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
That was really not what I was expecting from that episode. What was really lovely to hear and see is the dynamics of everyone's journey, and all of the elements that you just really wouldn't have considered or thought about. I think, both couples gave some really valid advice, some really important messages and steps, and I just was kind of blown away by how they are all approaching their surrogacy journey. And like we've mentioned before, everyone's journey is really different, with different needs and wants and different coping mechanisms. But I think you got a real balance from two sets of really lovely intended parents who care and who at some point will make amazing parents. So yeah, that's kind of what I've got to take away from this. So don't forget, if you need your podcast fix, we're here every Monday, proudly sponsored by Herts and Essex Fertility Centre, one of the top performing fertility clinics in the UK and some of the best success rates in the east of England. If you want to find out more about My Surrogacy Journey, then head over to our website, which is mysurrogacyjourney.com, or find us on Instagram at official My Surrogacy Journey. If you like this episode, then please subscribe to the series. Thank you for listening. I have been your My Surrogacy Journey host. Goodbye.